My father's voice echoed through the courtroom like he owned the air itself. She is mentally unfit, he said, loud enough for every stranger in the gallery to hear. Unstable, emotional, delusional, she cannot be trusted with anything that matters. The words didn't just sting. They branded. People turned their heads toward me, eyes narrowing, as if they were trying to see the broken version of me he was describing. A woman in the second row whispered something to her husband. A man in a suit frowned like he'd already decided. My father sat tall beside his attorney, perfectly composed, the kind of man who always looked like the hero in his own story. And for most of my life, he had been. At least to everyone else. To me, he was something else entirely. I didn't react. I didn't flinch. I didn't give him what he wanted. Because the truth was, I had spent years learning how to stay silent while someone rewrote my reality out loud. The judge looked down at the file, then up at me. Miss, he said carefully, do you understand what is being claimed? I nodded once. Yes, Your Honor. My father's attorney stood immediately, smoothing his sleeve like this was routine. Your Honor, we are requesting that she be declared incompetent to manage the trust assets and that full control be transferred to her father as next of kin. Trust assets. That phrase sounded so clean. So legal. So harmless. But it was the entire reason we were here. My father wasn't worried about my mental health. He was worried about money. And not just any money. The kind of money that turns family into strangers overnight. It started months ago, the day a sealed letter arrived at my apartment. No return address. Only my name typed neatly. Inside was one sentence that made my hands go cold. You have been named the sole beneficiary. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. I wasn't the golden child. I wasn't the favorite. I wasn't the one they bragged about at dinners. I was the quiet one. The one who left early. The one who didn't ask for help because help always came with a hook. So when I read the letter again and realized it was real, I sat down on the kitchen floor and stared at the wall for a full hour. A trust. A legacy. A fortune that had been placed in my name without warning. And within 48 hours, my father showed up at my door. Not with concern. Not with love. With urgency. He didn't even pretend. You need to sign something, he said before he even stepped inside. What? It's paperwork. Temporary. Just until we sort everything out. I stared at him. You haven't spoken to me in months. He smiled the way he always did when he wanted something. That's not fair. I'm here now. He held out a folder. I didn't take it. I want to read it first. His smile tightened. It's complicated legal language. You won't understand it. That was the first insult. Wrapped in sweetness. The next came faster. You've always been emotional. You make impulsive decisions. You don't see the bigger picture. Finally, he sighed dramatically. I'm trying to protect you. Protect me. From what? From owning what was mine. I told him no. His face changed instantly. The warmth vanished like a switched-off light. And when he spoke again, his voice was colder. If you don't cooperate, you'll regret it. 2 weeks later, I was served. Court papers. My father was petitioning to declare me mentally incompetent. He claimed I was unstable. That I couldn't manage finances. That I was a danger to myself. I read every word in disbelief. This was not a father worried about his daughter. This was a man trying to erase me legally. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call everyone I knew. But then I realized something that made my stomach drop. He had already been calling them. Because suddenly, people looked at me differently. Friends asked if I was doing okay. A distant relative messaged, heard you're going through something. Even my workplace supervisor gently suggested I take a few days off if I was stressed. My father wasn't just suing. He was building a narrative. And narratives, when repeated enough, become truth to the wrong ears. So I did the only thing I could do. I stayed calm. I hired an attorney quietly. Not one my father knew. Not one connected to anyone in his circles. Someone independent. Someone who didn't care about my father's reputation. And when my attorney asked me one question, everything shifted. Do you know why they really want control? I swallowed. The trust. He nodded. Then we need to know what's inside it. Fully. I thought the trust was just money. But my attorney's investigator uncovered something else. Something hidden beneath the numbers. The trust wasn't simply wealth. It was ownership, shares, control, of a company tied directly to my father's entire image. The kind of company that made him powerful, respected, untouchable. And suddenly, I understood. This wasn't about taking care of me. This was about stopping me before I realized what I actually held. Because if the wrong person controlled those assets, my father could lose everything. That's why we were here. In court. With him calling me mentally unfit. With strangers judging me. with his attorney acting like I was already broken. My father leaned toward the judge. Your Honor, he said softly now, as if heartbroken, I love my child. But she has episodes. She refuses help. She believes people are after her. I almost laughed. The audacity was suffocating. The judge's eyes flicked to me again. His voice was neutral. Miss, would you like to respond? I stood slowly, every movement deliberate, every breath controlled. Yes, Your Honor. I turned slightly toward my father, then back to the judge. My father says I'm unfit because I refused to sign documents transferring control of assets to him. My father's attorney snapped up. Objection. The judge raised a hand. Let her speak. The room stilled. I continued, steady. I have no diagnosed mental illness. No history of incompetence. No medical evidence has been presented because none exists. My father's jaw tightened. I looked directly at him. And the reason he is doing this is because he is afraid of what I've learned. That got a reaction. Whispers. Movement. The judge leaned forward slightly. What have you learned? I didn't answer immediately, because this was the moment. The moment my father had spent months trying to prevent. I reached into my folder, pulled out one document, and placed it on the table. My attorney will submit this, Your Honor. The judge nodded to the clerk. My father's attorney glanced at it and froze for half a second. Just half. But I saw it. Then my father shifted in his seat. What is that? He demanded, voice sharp. I stayed calm. It's the audit trail of the trust holdings. My father's face darkened. The judge looked down, reading. And then, his expression changed, not to confusion, to recognition, like he was finally seeing what this really was. The courtroom felt suddenly smaller. The judge looked up again, eyes locking onto my father. And his voice, when he spoke, was sharper than before. Mr. ______, he said slowly, are you aware of what your daughter actually controls through this trust? My father's attorney opened his mouth. My father spoke first. She doesn't understand. The judge cut him off. No. The word landed like a hammer. I'm asking you. My father's mouth tightened. He didn't answer. And that silence was the first crack in his armor. The judge leaned forward more. His next words were quiet, almost conversational, but they carried the kind of authority that makes grown men tremble. You really don't know, do you? My father blinked. The courtroom held its breath. And I realized, in that exact moment, this wasn't going the way he planned. Not at all, because the judge wasn't looking at me like I was unstable anymore. He was looking at my father like he was lying. And the truth was about to come out. My father's fingers curled slightly against the armrest. It was the first sign of discomfort he couldn't hide. The judge's gaze stayed fixed on him, patient but unmoving, like a door that would not open until the truth stepped through. You really don't know, do you? The judge repeated. My father's attorney cleared his throat quickly. Your Honor, with respect, this line of questioning is irrelevant to the matter of. It's extremely relevant, the judge interrupted, voice calm but sharp. Because this petition claims the daughter is incompetent. Yet what I'm looking at suggests something else entirely. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear someone's shallow breathing behind me. My father's lips parted. She's confused, he said, forcing a laugh that sounded brittle. She's misunderstanding the trust structure. I'm only trying to protect her, I murmured. He snapped his eyes toward me. The judge raised a hand again, silencing everyone. Then he looked down at the document once more, scanning line after line. His expression tightened. And then, finally, he spoke. This trust does not simply contain liquid assets. My father went still. It contains controlling equity. Whispers erupted instantly, suppressed but uncontrollable, like wind pushing through cracks. The judge continued. A majority holding. Enough to influence board decisions. My father's attorney's face had turned slightly pale. My father leaned forward. That can't be correct. The judge's eyes lifted. It is correct. A pause. And then, this trust holds the silent partner stake in Mitchell Tech Solutions. The words struck the room like lightning. Mitchell Tech Solutions. The company my father had built his entire identity on. The company whose name was on charity plaques, conference stages, business magazines. The company people associated with him like it was carved into his skin. My father's attorney stood too quickly. Your Honor, this is confidential corporate. The judge's voice rose just enough to cut through him. You brought this into my courtroom the moment you tried to weaponize incompetence to seize it. My father's jaw clenched. His voice dropped. She doesn't even work there. The judge nodded. That's interesting, isn't it? He leaned back slightly. Because according to this, she doesn't need to. The courtroom felt unreal, like the air had thickened. My father's attorney turned toward him, whispering urgently. My father hissed something back. Then he looked at me again, and his eyes were no longer controlled. They were sharp. Warning. The judge wasn't finished. He tapped the paper. This petition claims she is delusional. Yet the only delusion I'm seeing is the belief that the court would blindly strip someone of their rights without evidence. My father's attorney forced a calmer tone. Your Honor, this is about her mental stability, not business. The judge's gaze cut cold. No medical records have been presented. He turned slightly. No physician testimony. Then back. No documented history. His voice sharpened. This court does not declare someone incompetent because a powerful parent finds them inconvenient. A ripple went through the gallery. My father's face flushed. He leaned forward suddenly. She's being manipulated, he snapped. She's always been susceptible to influence. The judge raised his eyebrows. Enough. The single word silenced him completely. Then the judge's tone shifted. Not angry, not accusatory, almost curious. Miss, he said, looking at me again, do you know what this stake means? I swallowed. My voice stayed steady. It means the trust isn't just money. The judge nodded. It means power. My father shifted in his seat, restless now. It also means, the judge continued slowly, that if your father were granted control. He paused. He would effectively regain control over a portion of the company he may not currently control. My father's attorney stiffened. My father's voice snapped. I built that company. The judge's eyes were unblinking. And yet, it seems you do not fully own it. The words landed like a gavel strike without the gavel. My father froze. His attorney's lips parted slightly, like he wanted to undo the last 30 seconds of existence. The judge turned toward my attorney. Counsel, how did your client come into possession of this trust? My attorney rose smoothly. Your Honor, the trust was established by an independent benefactor years ago. The identity is sealed, but the structure was designed to protect the beneficiary from coercion. The judge nodded slowly. A wise design. My father's voice cracked through. This is ridiculous. She can't even handle her own life. I didn't react, but my attorney did. He took one step forward. With permission, Your Honor, I'd like to submit additional evidence. The judge gestured. Proceed. My attorney placed another folder on the clerk's desk. My father's attorney's eyes flicked it. Then widened. Just slightly. The judge opened it, scanning. And then, his expression hardened. What is this? He asked. My attorney's voice was calm. Text messages. Emails. Recorded attempts by the petitioner to pressure my client into signing over trust authority. My father slammed his hand down. That's private. The judge's voice turned icy. You made it public when you filed this petition. He flipped another page. And here, his finger tapped. He threatens retaliation. The courtroom murmured again. The judge read aloud. If you don't sign, I'll make sure no one believes you. I'll take you apart legally. My father's face changed, like the mask was cracking. That's out of context. The judge cut him off. It's perfectly in context. He sat back fully now. And for the first time, he looked at my father not as a concerned parent, but as a man standing dangerously close to contempt. Then the judge leaned forward again. His voice lowered. Mr. ______, this court does not exist to help you steal from your own child. Silence. Total. My father's attorney whispered urgently. We need to request recess. But the judge wasn't done. He looked at me again, softer now. Miss, do you feel safe with your father having any control over this trust? My chest rose slowly. I answered honestly. No, Your Honor. My father's voice came out strangled. You're doing this to me? I looked at him. No, I said quietly. You did this to yourself. Something flickered across his face. Fear. Real fear. Because he understood now. This wasn't going to end with him walking out victorious. The judge turned to the clerk. This petition is denied. My father jolted. What? The judge's voice was firm. Denied with prejudice. The words hit like a hammer. Meaning he couldn't simply file again. My father's attorney started speaking rapidly. Your Honor, the judge raised a hand. And I am referring this matter for further review. My father went rigid. Review of what? The judge's eyes locked onto him. Attempted coercion. Pause. Fraudulent misrepresentation. Another pause. And potential abuse of process. My father's face drained. The courtroom was no longer watching me. They were watching him. The powerful man. The respected businessman. The father who had walked in thinking he could brand his daughter unstable. Only to be exposed. The judge stood. Court adjourned. The gavel struck. And just like that, everything shifted. People rose. Whispers turned louder. My father remained seated. Frozen, my attorney leaned toward me. It's not over, he murmured. But you just won. I exhaled slowly, because the truth was, the court battle wasn't even the real storm. The real storm was what came next. Because when the board of Mitchell Tech Solutions learned that the silent partner stake belonged to me, my father's empire was about to shake. And the next morning, his phone would start ringing. Non-stop. My father didn't move for several seconds after the judge adjourned. He sat there like a statue that had suddenly realized the pedestal beneath it was cracking. Around him, lawyers gathered papers quickly, voices low, urgent. Spectators whispered as they filed out. Some glanced at him with something that wasn't respect anymore. It was curiosity, the kind people have when they sense a powerful man is about to fall. I walked past him without stopping. He hissed my name under his breath, sharp like a hook. But I didn't turn, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of him. Outside the courthouse, the air felt different. Cleaner. My attorney exhaled. That judge just saved you from years of legal abuse. I nodded slowly, but deep inside, I knew. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning. Because my father didn't lose quietly. Men like him never did. That night, I slept for the first time in months without checking my phone every 10 minutes. No panic, no dread, just silence. Then, morning came, and the storm arrived. My phone buzzed at 7:14 a.m. One missed call, then another, then another. I frowned, sitting up. The caller ID wasn't my father. It was a number I didn't recognize. Then, a second number. Then, a third. By 7:30 a.m., I had 12 missed calls. And then my attorney called. His voice was sharp. Do not answer anyone except me right now. My stomach tightened. What's happening? He paused, then said the words I'll never forget. The board found out. I went still. Found out what? That the silent partner stake isn't just equity. He inhaled. It's controlling voting power. And it's yours. The words didn't feel real. How? He answered immediately. Because your father called them. My breath caught. He continued. He thought he could stop it by getting ahead of it. He called the chairman at midnight. Tried to explain. I whispered. Explain what? My attorney's voice turned cold. That you were unstable. That you were being manipulated. That the court was wrong. My jaw clenched. And the chairman didn't care. My attorney's tone sharpened. They're calling an emergency meeting this morning. I swung my legs off the bed. Why are they calling me? My attorney said quietly. Because they want to meet the person who owns the ground beneath their feet. The meeting was at 9 a.m. Mitchell Tech Solutions headquarters, the building my father used to treat like a throne room. I arrived 15 minutes early. The lobby was pure glass and steel. Employees glanced at me as I walked in. No one stopped me, because my attorney was beside me. And because something about the air had changed. At 8:58, an executive assistant approached, voice trembling slightly. They're ready for you. She led us into the boardroom. It was enormous. Long polished table, city skyline behind the windows. 12 seats filled. Men and women who looked like they had never been unsure of anything in their lives. And then, at the far end of the table, my father. He stood as soon as I entered. His face was tight with something I'd never seen before. Panic. Why is she here? He snapped. The chairman didn't even glance at him. Instead, he looked at me. And smiled. Thank you for coming on such short notice. My father stepped forward. This is insane. She has no business being in this room. The chairman finally looked at him. She has more business here than you do right now. The room went silent. My father froze. I sat down calmly. My attorney placed a folder in front of me. The chairman spoke. Let's not waste time. He slid documents across the table. As of yesterday, it became clear that the Silent Partner Trust holds 52% voting equity through layered holdings. My father's voice cracked. That was never meant to surface. The chairman's eyes were sharp. And yet it did. He turned to me again. Which means, legally, you have controlling influence. I swallowed, keeping my voice steady. I didn't know until recently. The chairman nodded slowly. We believe you. My father let out a harsh laugh. She's lying. She doesn't even understand what she owns. A woman on the board spoke for the first time. Mr. Mitchell? Her tone was lethal. You filed a court petition claiming she was incompetent. My father's face turned red. That was personal. The woman didn't blink. No. She leaned forward. That was an attempt to seize corporate control through guardianship fraud. My father's mouth opened, then closed. The chairman folded his hands. Mr. Mitchell, as founder, you were respected. He paused. But as of this morning. He slid one paper forward. We are voting on your removal as acting CEO. The words were nuclear. My father went rigid. You can't remove me. The chairman's voice stayed calm. We can. Because she can. He gestured slightly toward me. My father snapped his head toward me. His eyes were wild now. You wouldn't. I didn't speak immediately, because the truth was, a part of me still saw him as my father. Still remembered childhood. Still remembered the man who used to lift me onto his shoulders before business turned him into something colder. But then, I remembered the courtroom, the lies, the humiliation, the way he tried to erase me legally. So I leaned forward, and said quietly, I won't destroy you. My father's face flickered with relief. Then I added, I'll just stop protecting you. His relief shattered. The chairman cleared his throat. All in favor of removal? Hands rose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My father's breathing became audible. Then, the final hand. Unanimous. My father whispered. No. The chairman's voice was final. Effective immediately, you are removed. My father stood so fast his chair scraped. You can't do this. Security at the door shifted. The chairman's tone was ice. You did this. My father's voice cracked violently. This is my company. I spoke softly. It was never only yours. The boardroom remained silent. My father looked around like someone drowning. Then his eyes landed on me again. Something broke in them. You were supposed to need me. The words were raw. Not business. Not pride. Something uglier. Control. I stood slowly. No. I said. I was supposed to be your daughter. His face twisted. Then he laughed. A hollow, shaking sound. And in that laugh, the empire died. Security stepped forward. Sir, you need to leave. My father turned one last time. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. Like the version of me he could intimidate was gone forever. Then he walked out, and the doors closed behind him. The chairman exhaled, then looked at me carefully. We want to make an offer. I raised an eyebrow. An offer? He nodded. You can sell your stake. My attorney's eyes sharpened. Or, the chairman continued, you can take your seat. Silence. The room waited. And I realized something. This wasn't revenge. Not the petty kind. This was justice. I didn't want to burn the company. I wanted to make sure no one ever used power like my father had again. So I sat down, and said simply, I'll take my seat. The chairman smiled. Then welcome, director. That afternoon, news broke. Founder removed after court controversy. Investors stabilized. Employees whispered. And my father. My father disappeared from headlines the way he tried to make me disappear from life. Weeks later, I received one final message from him. 3 words. You were wrong. I stared at it, then deleted it. Because the truth was, he was wrong. And he finally knew it. The world didn't collapse when I stopped obeying. It opened. And for the first time, I wasn't surviving. I was free.